starts now.
We have new information tonight on a First Alert 6 investigation examining the tale of two wildly different sentences involving the same sex crime involving the same 15-year-old victim.
The sentencing has been appealed to the Nebraska Supreme Court by the Douglas County attorney, who called it excessively lenient.
Tonight, for the first time, we hear from the defense team and their arguments to the high court. See why they believe the judge did not overstep his authority, even if they agreed what he said from the bench was a bit awkward and clumsy. Inside this courtroom in March, prosecutors urged Judge Richard McGowan to sentence a defendant to something similar to another defendant who would reach the same plea deal with the same charges involving the same 15-year-old victim. In response, the new judge pushed back, telling the court, "I am the law. The governor has entrusted me to make this decision." For sexual assault of a child, the judge then sentenced Bradley Perry to probation. Another defendant received significant jail time for the same crime involving the same victim. In March, in an exclusive interview with First Alert 6, Douglas County Attorney Don Klein called it excessively lenient.
Outrageous when you talk about the facts and circumstances of this case.
Klein appealed the case to the Nebraska Supreme Court. Tonight, Bradley Perry's defense team fires back in this 38-page Supreme Court brief, arguing a sentence should fit the offender and not merely the crime, and that while the sentence is lenient, it's not excessively lenient and should stand. The defense points to these factors as to why Bradley Perry got probation. He had a lot of support in the courtroom that day. He was the command battalion leader of his ROTC group. He thought everyone on the website was 19. The victim was 15 and 1 year shy of being able to consensually engage in this sort of activity. That a psychiatric examination determined he was a low to moderate risk to reoffend. The Attorney General's team, who argues the case for Douglas County, points out in its brief that Perry knew the victim's true age, that Perry repeatedly urged the victim to delete the messages and hide the evidence. The state calls this case a rare exception, that Judge McGowan ignored factors that would point to prison while amplifying factors that cut the other way. The victim's mother called Perry a wolf in sheep's clothing. The government also argued that the judge's comment, "I am the law," would make a reasonable person question potential bias. The defense team also points to this. The first person to be sentenced in this case was Chris Lopez. District Court Judge Derek Vaughn sentenced him to probation. Next up, 42-year-old Eric Bergstrom. He was sentenced by the same judge. Judge Vaughn ordered him to 30 years in prison for first-degree sexual assault. Vaughn was promoted to the Supreme Court, so a new Douglas County District Court judge would sentence Bradley Perry. As we said, Judge Richard McGowan sentenced Perry to probation for the same crime, the same victim, the same timeline. The defense argued that Perry's case is more in line with the Lopez case because of the ages. But the state strongly disagrees with that premise, telling First Alert 6 months ago they didn't appeal the sentence of probation for Chris Lopez because the victim and defendant were so close in age, a 4-year difference. As you saw in that graphic, there's a much bigger age difference between the victim and Bradley Perry, 18 years. Now, Perry did get 3 years in prison on a separate charge of child pornography. The Nebraska Supreme Court will decide this appeal. It's not clear if they'll issue a written decision or ask both sides to argue the case in person.